All right. Well, shocking enough, we have more news today from V-Jump, and of course, they made Endymion an entire archetype. I'm not exactly sure how this is gonna settle with me at the end of the day, but you know what? It's cool. We can do it. So, Empress of Endymion. This card actually looks hella cool. Actually, scales 2. That's gonna be important. I feel for the long run, but. Oh boy, pendulum-based support. Okay, so each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card when that card resolves. And that's a pendulum scale effect. You remove 3 spell counters from this card, special summon both this card from your pendulum zone and one monster from your hand that you can place a spell counter on. And if you do place one spell counter on each of those hold on here. So I get to special summon both this card and one monster from my hand that can place spell counters and get to beam out a counter on each. Okay, that's interesting. You can special summon one Empress of Endymion only once per turn. So it's either through her own effect or via pendulum summoning. So if this card is special summoned, you can target one other card you control with a spell counter and one card your opponent controls. Return both those targets to your hand, even if the first target has no spell counters on it. Okay. Then place onto this card the spell counters that were returned from the field. And when this card with spell counters destroyed by battle, you can add one Endymion card from your deck to your hand. First off, why did they not give this the float effect of being destroyed by card effect? Nobody's going to ram into an 1850 over here via battle and actually expect this to seriously float. But this is actually very interesting. I do like the fact that we have essential Kiraning now. Well, not really, it's on summon, but interesting try with this archetype. Like, I'm curious to see where this is going to go. Magister of Endymion. Okay, what we got going on over here? He looks interesting. So, each time a spell counter is activated, place one spell counter on this card. When that card resolves, this is another pendulum. This is a high scale, too. So you can remove 3 counters from this card, special summon both this card from your pendulum zone and one monster from your extra deck that you can place a spell counter on. If you do, place one spell counter on each of those 2 monsters. Wow, a self-special summoning monster from the extra deck clause. Actually, this is pretty interesting. But those 3 spell counters, though, I mean, Toon Table will get you to where you need to be. So you only special summon one of him once per turn, of course. When this card declares an attack, you can place one spell counter on this card. This thing's 1500. Once per turn, quick effect, remove 3 spell counters from your field, special summon one monster from your deck that you can place a spell counter on. Okay. If this card in your monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone, then you can place spell counters on this card equal to the spell counters that were on it. So, they learned that whatever you're doing with the spell counter mechanic, you need to let these things float back. Alright, I will give you guys a little bit of credit on this one. I think that this one's a little bit better. The fact that it floats back is great. The fact that it maintains its counters is great. This is overall just a very good support card. Just kind of depending on what the rest of the archetype does at the moment. Like, you have to restructure the entire spell counter mechanic for this, I feel like. Ugh. So, Servant of Endymion. What we got here? Alright, I like the art. So, each time a spell counter is activated, you get to place one spell counter on this card when that card resolves. Seems to be our go-to here. So we can remove 3 spell counters from this card, special summon both this card from your pendulum zone and one monster with 1000 or more attack that you can place spell counters on if you do place one spell counter on each of those monsters. This guy had 1500. Okay, so we do get to beam out both. Okay, that's cool. That, once again, that's our pendulum effect. So, you can only special summon one of this guy once per turn. Why did they have to put the self-restricting clauses on these cards? I think it's kind of the one thing that I'm a little bit disappointed in, is they're all restricted in this way. And then, this card can attack directly while it has spell counters. That's interesting for 900. Once per turn, quick effect, you can discard one card to place one spell counter on this card and all other cards you control that you can place a spell counter on. That's actually pretty interesting, but I really hope whatever you're discarding is great. If this card in your monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone, and then you can place the spell counters on this card that were equal to it. Okay, so same thing here. We have another self-floating mechanism that will return back to where it was. That's what we would like to see here. And to top things off, I mean, we get to do counters onto itself. I also like how it's during the opponent's turn for that effect. I don't know how I feel about this guy. The whole Endymion archetype is... I've got a giant question mark about in my head. Spell Powers Control. Please be better than Spell Power Grasp. So you can add one Endymion card from your deck to your hand, and then place as many spell counters as possible on cards that you control that you can place spell counters on. But no more spell counters than the total number of Spell Power Grasp and Spell Power Controls on your field and in your graveyard. I am not playing Spell Power Grasp in my life. I think that card is terrible. I think that the fact that they designed it the way that they did was pretty lacking, for a better word, of self-support. But to be honest, like, the overall mechanic that they were going for with Spell Power Grasp, you should have just remade the card at this point and just beefed it up, because it would have been so much better. But they're trying to make us want to play that old bad card, and I'm not about that life right now. Like, there are just better cards overall in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! At this current point in time that you should have remade it. I almost feel. Is Endymion's lab. Well, glad to see the Tempest Magician is a member of this lab. I guess that makes sense. So, you can only activate one card with this card's name once per turn. Oh boy, my favorite clause. So this card's name becomes Magical Citadel of Endymion while it is in the Spell and Trap card zone. Okay. When a spell card is activating, place one spell counter on this card when that card resolves. Okay. So, I'm already liking the fact that this card is acting as Endymion without being in my field spell zone. That seems good to me. So once per turn, if a spellcaster you control is destroyed by battle, after damage calculation, you can remove 6 spell counters from this card, special summon one level 7 or higher spellcaster from your hand or deck. This is literally just a better Endymion, and it doesn't take up my field spell zone. Okay, once again, like, they've proved to me that they saw the flaws in the spellcaster, or the archetype. They decided to actually just fresh overhaul this. Okay, that was the right step in the first direction. But you need the fact that Endymion couldn't be destroyed to maintain itself, because, call it what it is, like, I can just leave this card on the field and then just, Twin Twister or something like that. It needed the protection clause, and they just didn't give it to this card. So if there's any big major flaw in this whole archetype, it's the fact that they just did not give this built-in protection. So if you wonder why this archetype is gonna be do or bust, well, I found it for you. What the heck is this? This is Magical War. Guidance of Spell Salvation. You can only activate one card with this card's name once per turn. Target one spellcaster effect monster in your graveyard. Add that monster to your hand. Well, that's interesting. It would appear that they've given us a monster reincarnation-esque card for spellcasters. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this, actually. Okay, sure. I don't know what synergy that this is supposed to have with pendulums so far, but, okay, I see that you were trying here. Overall impressions of this stuff, though, I do think that there is potential to be had. That's a big if for the potential. I'm not exactly sure where this archetype is going to land in the grand scheme of things. I want to be really bad and say that I don't really like this stuff, but, like, I do think that there are things potential. We'll see where it goes. I'm hoping that there would be more, but I mean, that's what core set support is for. And then we have one more thing to actually cover today. The spin turn actually came out last night. So it's a trap card. You can activate one of these effects. You can target one attack position machine Xyz monster. It has to be Earth, by the way, and one monster your opponent controls. Change the battle position of your monster, and if you do, destroy that opponent's monster. Or you could target one of your defense position Earth Xyz monsters and one spell and trap card your opponent controls. Change the battle position of your monster, and if you do, destroy the opponent's card. This is just kind of... Why did they make this? I'm not exactly sure. It's kind of... They wanted to put Infinite Ignition on some art and try to sell it. Okay, cool. But it doesn't seem that good. So, overall, Endymion support looking very interesting. I still have a little bit of a distaste in my mouth because I almost don't think that there's enough, per se, to make the archetype really great. But, we'll have to wait and see kind of what the future brings for us. Because I don't know, there could be some cheesy OTK or something with the deck. It's spell counters, man. All right, guys, I'm out. Peace. The ride never, well, truly ends. Thank you, patrons. Without you guys, I don't know what I'd be wearing in these videos. I might be a Truffle Shuffle incident all over again. Guys, please also check out VanCole40 for some awesome Vanguard content. Some other interesting stuff you might find up here on the left or in the description as well. Thanks for watching.